The story begins by showing a temperamental police officer named Whi-Oh, who comes to a mental hospital as one of the outpatients at the hospital. Actually, Whi-Oh is a tough and legendary police officer. However, something happened in the past, causing Whi-Oh to now have issues with his emotions. Currently, Whi-Oh has to take a leave from the police force until he is declared recovered at the hospital. Whi-Oh then expresses his frustration to the doctor, saying that some time ago there was a mentally ill woman who provoked his emotions, where the woman wore glasses and had a flower tucked behind her ear. While in the elevator, the woman even screamed and hit Whi-Oh with an umbrella. At that moment, Whi-Oh, who has temperamental issues, was immediately provoked and got angry, hitting the elevator to release his anger. Not only that, Whi-Oh also took deep breaths while counting, because he believed this could help calm his emotions. At the same time, the doctor just wrote down all of Whi-Oh's stories to make a conclusion. Shortly after, it was now the turn of a beautiful woman for a psychiatric counseling session. The woman with the flower behind her ear was Min-Kyung, and it turned out that she was the woman Whi-Oh had mentioned. Unexpectedly, Min-Kyung was also one of the outpatients at the hospital after a dark incident in the past, and she has now been diagnosed with a mental disorder. Her past trauma made Min-Kyung easily panicked and delusional, where she was always worried about whether she had closed the door or turned off the gas, and she was also always suspicious that someone intended to harm her. Min-Kyung then told her story that when she was about to enter the elevator, a man approached her with explosive anger. In a panic, Min-Kyung screamed and hit the man with an umbrella. And the man that Min-Kyung mentioned was Whi-Oh. At that moment, Min-Kyung was experiencing delusions, so she thought that Whi-Oh was a bad person who kept following her. In reality, they just happened to be walking in the same direction. Upon hearing Min-Kyung's story, the doctor only smiled, realizing that her two patients had coincidentally met. Not long after, Min-Kyung went to a convenience store and accidentally saw Whi-Oh eating there. Min-Kyung again suspected that Whi-Oh was following her and warned the store clerk to be cautious of Whi-Oh. Upon hearing this, the clerk, named Soo-hyun, became wary of Whi-Oh. After eating, Whi-Oh had a stomachache and asked Soo-hyun where the toilet was. Influenced by Min-Kyung's words, Soo-hyun lied and said that there was no toilet there. Upon hearing this, Whi-Oh immediately ran home. While Whi-Oh was running, Min-Kyung saw him again and thought he was chasing her. Panicking, Min-Kyung also started running, trying to save herself and avoid Whi-Oh. When she reached the front door of her apartment, Min-Kyung panicked again because Whi-Oh was getting closer to her. In a hurry, Min-Kyung opened the door and went inside, while Whi-Oh entered the house next door, and it turned out that they were neighbors. At the same time, Whi-Oh, who was urgently needing to use the bathroom, had to hold it in because he was having trouble getting into his house due to his mother's sudden visit. When he finally got inside, Whi-Oh had to argue with his father who was in the bathroom. Even his father almost hit him, thinking that Whi-Oh was angry with him. However, Whi-Oh couldn't hold it any longer and ended up defecating in his pants. Sometime later, one night, Min-Kyung found a cute dog near a trash can and she wanted to adopt it. But when Min-Kyung chased the dog to the basement, she suddenly saw Whi-Oh walking towards her. At that moment, Min-Kyung once again deluded herself into thinking that Whi-Oh was going to harm her and looked for a CCTV camera to ask for help. Not only that, she also jumped up and down on a car to create a commotion. Seeing this, Whi-Oh was puzzled as to why Min-Kyung was so panicked, as he had no ill intentions at all. However, Min-Kyung happened to be jumping on his car, which made Whi-Oh's anger explode. After that, their misunderstanding ended at the police station, where Min-Kyung accused Whi-Oh of continuously following her and intending to harm her. Additionally, Min-Kyung believed that Whi-Oh bore a strong resemblance to a fugitive wanted by the police. But after a closer look, it turned out that Whi-Oh's face and the face of the fugitive in the photo were very different. Feeling wrongfully accused, Whi-Oh said that Min-Kyung was mentally ill because she kept screaming without reason and even hit him. He also cited articles and laws related to the violence committed by Min-Kyung. Not only that, Whi-Oh also outlined what punishment she deserved. Hearing this, Min-Kyung was shocked, wondering how a thug like Whi-Oh could understand the law. Shortly after, a police officer named Young-ki arrived and addressed Whi-Oh as detective. At that moment, Min-Kyung finally realized that she had wrongly accused him, as he was actually a detective. Shortly after, Whi-Oh and Young-ki talked, where Young-ki said that Eugene was now fine, so Whi-Oh didn't need to worry. He even encouraged Whi-Oh to visit Eugene. Regret was clearly written on Whi-Oh's face, but it was not yet known who Eugene was and why Whi-Oh felt guilty towards him. Not long after, a head detective named Manager Kim arrived, and he was angry at Whi-Oh for causing a commotion when he should have been focusing on his treatment to be able to return to work. Sometime later, at the next consultation, Whi-Oh told the doctor that he still often got angry. But the doctor then told Whi-Oh that he must first recognize the source of his anger. After that, Whi-Oh began to recount his past. At that time, the criminal police team, which consisted of Whi-Oh, Young-ki, and Eugene, was preparing to arrest a drug dealer. Just when the target was in sight, Manager Kim called and said that the arrest warrant had not been issued by headquarters, so they were prohibited from making the arrest. However, Whi-Oh didn't want to lose the target, so he persuaded Eugene and Young-ki to recklessly enter the club and chase the dealer. During the chaos, Eugene was suddenly beaten and stabbed by an unknown person. As a result, Whi-Oh became furious and attacked the person, but then the police from headquarters arrived. At that time, Whi-Oh and his team were working without a warrant, so the police ended up arresting Whi-Oh and his team on charges of causing a disturbance. Meanwhile, Eugene, who was injured, was taken to the hospital and ended up paralyzed. Since that incident, Whi-Oh has been unable to control his emotions. He even gets angry over trivial matters. Hearing this, the doctor suggested that Whi-Oh should avoid situations that could trigger his anger. Following the doctor's advice, Whi-Oh decided to avoid Min-Kyung, whether at home, in the elevator, or at the clinic. This made Min-Kyung curious, and she actually felt guilty for accusing Whi-Oh. However, her ego was so high that she didn't want to apologize. One night, while Whi-Oh was eating, Min-Kyung suddenly approached him. This made Whi-Oh frustrated, as the person he wanted to avoid was now approaching him. Min-Kyung then asked why Whi-Oh was avoiding her, and he explained that it was because a few days ago, Min-Kyung had jumped on top of his car. Since they had already run into each other, Whi-Oh demanded compensation from Min-Kyung. However, Whi-Oh also said he would reduce the compensation amount if Min-Kyung agreed to change hospitals. Additionally, Whi-Oh wanted Min-Kyung to avoid him as well. But Min-Kyung asked why she had to move to a different hospital, and Whi-Oh immediately explained that he was undergoing treatment to control his emotions. So it would be difficult for him to recover if his emotions were constantly provoked by Min-Kyung. However, Min-Kyung instead asked him to move to another hospital if he didn't like seeing her. Hearing that, Whi-Oh tried to control his emotions and explained that he couldn't move to another hospital because that place was the only hospital in the area that had a female doctor. This made Min-Kyung laugh, thinking that Whi-Oh was being perverted, but he clarified that he couldn't hit a woman, so if the doctor were a man, Whi-Oh would find it hard to control himself and might end up harming the doctor. Min-Kyung then accused Whi-Oh of just trying to act cool, which made him upset. He responded that Min-Kyung was still fine because he couldn't bring himself to hit a woman. The next day, Min-Kyung had a nightmare and immediately felt suffocated upon waking up. After that, she opened all the doors and windows, thinking that she had forgotten to turn off the gas. After experiencing this, Min-Kyung went to see the doctor to discuss her problem. At that moment, the doctor said that Min-Kyung needed to have confidence and asked what made Min-Kyung lose her self-confidence. Hearing this, she then told a beautiful story about her ex-boyfriend. After that, the doctor asked how Min-Kyung felt about her ex-boyfriend now, and Min-Kyung immediately got angry and said that she wanted him to disappear from this world. Apparently, the trauma Min-Kyung experienced was so significant that it caused her to lose her confidence because of her ex. Meanwhile, Whi-Oh was awakened by the women from the neighborhood association, who asked him to join the night patrol, as there was a young man causing distress in their neighborhood by exposing himself to women. Even Soo-hyun, the convenience store clerk, was one of his victims. That night, Whi-Oh decided to join the patrol, which led the housewives to tease him, making Whi-Oh feel uncomfortable. While on patrol, they encountered teenagers smoking and a young man who was drunk. Not only that, Whi-Oh even saw Min-Kyung in a cafe, who responded by giving him the middle finger. At the same time, in the cafe, there was a woman who used to work at the same office as Min-Kyung, causing her to delude herself into thinking that the woman was gossiping about her. Min-Kyung then remembered her past when she was still an employee, when she was suddenly visited by a woman who claimed to be her boyfriend's wife. The woman then accused Min-Kyung of being a homewrecker, causing a scandal and ruining her reputation at the office. Min-Kyung's boyfriend at that time was named Shan-Hu, and the woman also revealed that the wealth Shan-Hu flaunted actually belonged to her. Hearing this, Min-Kyung became even more confused about the situation, especially since she didn't know that Shan-Hu was already married. Eventually, Shan-Hu's angry wife poured coffee right over Min-Kyung's head. That night, Min-Kyung met with Shan-Hu, who explained that the woman's claims were false. Shan-Hu admitted that he had been married before but was now divorced and wanted Min-Kyung to take him back. After that, Min-Kyung pretended to call the woman, which made Shan-Hu panic. Seeing his panic made Min-Kyung certain that Shan-Hu was still married. On her way home, Min-Kyung received a message notification from Shan-Hu showing a video of their intimate moments together. Shan-Hu threatened to release the video if Min-Kyung didn't comply with his demands. He then ordered Min-Kyung to get into the car. At that moment, Shan-Hu's abusive nature emerged, and he cruelly grabbed Min-Kyung's hair. As a result, she could only cry and apologize. This became a traumatic moment that Min-Kyung has carried with her to this day. Back in the present, Whi-Oh and the head of the association were about to escort Soo-hyun home when they suddenly received a report that the pervert had been caught. They rushed to the location, only to find that it was a man disguised as a woman. Soo-hyun, being one of the victims, was asked to identify the man and confirm if he was the culprit. However, Soo-hyun stated that the man was not the perpetrator. Meanwhile, the housewives realized that the man was Shung-yeop, who lived in Unit 706. They were surprised to learn that Shung-yeop transformed into a woman at night. Nevertheless, the housewives insisted that he should be arrested, citing recent cases of men disguising themselves as women to commit crimes. However, Whi-Oh defended Shung-yeop, arguing that he shouldn't be arrested since transforming into a woman was not harming anyone. Not long after, when Whi-Oh returned to the apartment, he saw Min-Kyung banging on her door. Min-Kyung wanted to ask Whi-Oh for help to find her dog, which had been missing since the morning when she opened all the doors and windows because she felt suffocated. However, Whi-Oh refused to help, prompting Min-Kyung to accuse him of stealing the dog, as she felt that Whi-Oh's anger towards her could be a motive for him to do such a thing. Unwilling to be falsely accused, Whi-Oh then showed her a photo of himself patrolling with the neighborhood association. This left Min-Kyung speechless, and she sincerely begged for his help again. Whi-Oh, still annoyed, then ignored her, which leading Min-Kyung to threaten to destroy his car. Hearing this, Whi-Oh chased after Min-Kyung and agreed to help find the dog. After that, Min-Kyung even promised to change hospitals if the dog was found. Shortly after, they went to the CCTV room to look for the dog and found it with some children. Min-Kyung then ran over and took the dog, even scolding the children and making them cry. After calming down, she bought some candy for the children. At the same time, Whi-Oh reminded Min-Kyung of her promise to change hospitals. However, Min-Kyung stated that she would not switch hospitals. Instead, she offered to change her counseling schedule so that they wouldn't have to see each other often. The next day, Min-Kyung registered her dog as a pet and she named the dog Howie. Afterward, Min-Kyung went to a counseling session and talked a lot about her dog. Hearing this, the doctor said that pets are indeed good for stabilizing emotions, and Min-Kyung asked what if she got a larger dog that likes to bark. The doctor said that it would be good, but larger dogs can be a bit dangerous as they might bite. However, Min-Kyung mentioned that this big dog never bites women, which left the doctor confused. Unexpectedly, the dog Min-Kyung was referring to was actually Whi-Oh. On the other hand, the woman from the neighborhood association came to see Whi-Oh again and invited him to patrol with them again that night. However, Whi-Oh refused because he planned to visit Eugene afterward. However, when he arrived at the hospital, Whi-Oh immediately changed his mind, as he couldn't bear it because Eugene was now paralyzed, and he felt very guilty. Whi-Oh then met Young-Ki at the hospital and got angry because he had lied about Eugene's condition. Because Young-Ki said that Eugene was fine when in fact she was in a lot of pain. Additionally, Whi-Oh was upset because Eugene did not receive insurance from the police, since they did not have a warrant when they were attacked, which made Whi-Oh feel even more guilty. After that, Young-Ki provided information about the drug dealer they had been targeting, revealing that the dealer was marketing his products through a social media app. The next day, Whi-Oh, still obsessed with catching the drug dealer, quickly launched his mission, where he created a social media account and posed as a buyer. After identifying a suspect as the dealer, Whi-Oh placed an order and arranged a meeting. This time, Whi-Oh posed as a woman on social media. Therefore, he asked Shung-yeop to do his makeup as he needed to look like a woman to fool the target. While being made up, Whi-Oh asked why Shung-yeop transformed into a woman at night, as was also curious if Shung-yeop was gay or not. However, Shung-yeop explained that he was still straight and only dressed up as a hobby, though it was an unusual one. After getting his makeup done, Whi-Oh laughed at how beautiful he looked and arrived at the meeting point while disguised as a woman. Before long, a young man approached Whi-Oh. After confirming that the young man was his target, Whi-Oh immediately arrested him by force. Unfortunately, the young man turned out to be a police officer from headquarters, undercover as a dealer. Apparently, they were both undercover, Whi-Oh as a buyer and this police officer as a dealer. Because of this incident, the police from headquarters asked Whi-Oh not to interfere with drug dealer arrests anymore, especially since he was still on leave. After that, Whi-Oh returned home dejected. But on the way, Whi-Oh accidentally ran into Min-Kyung. Upon seeing Whi-Oh's makeup, Min-Kyung screamed and accused him of being a pervert flashing himself. Afraid of being mobbed by the residents, Whi-Oh chose to flee. Unfortunately, he was caught and taken to the police station, and the women from the neighborhood association couldn't believe that Whi-Oh was the pervert. While at the police station, manager Kim arrived and scolded Whi-Oh again. He was frustrated because Whi-Oh was always involved in chaos. After that, manager Kim explained to the women from the neighborhood association and the local police that Whi-Oh was not a pervert as he was dressed as a woman because he was undercover. Hearing this, the women from the neighborhood association immediately dispersed, feeling ashamed for accusing Whi-Oh. Outside the police station, manager Kim continued to reprimand Whi-Oh, prompting him to explain that he did this for Eugene. Manager Kim, still angry, retorted that Eugene was paralyzed because of Whi-Oh's recklessness. After that, he also warned Whi-Oh not to attempt to catch the dealer again because if he did, manager Kim wouldn't hesitate to fire him. At the same time, this conversation was accidentally overheard by Min-Kyung. Shortly after, despite the rain, Whi-Oh continued on his way home. However, Min-Kyung came and held an umbrella over him. Whi-Oh then wondered why Min-Kyung always suspected him. After all, he had helped Min-Kyung find her dog, but she still didn't trust him. As Whi-Oh expressed his emotions, tears started to fall from his eyes. Seeing this, Min-Kyung then apologized and tried to explain her situation. However, before she could mention her illness, Whi-Oh cut her off and told her that he didn't want to talk to her anymore. Feeling sad, Min-Kyung then walked away. But suddenly a man appeared in front of her and exposed himself, causing Min-Kyung to scream in terror. Hearing Min-Kyung scream, Whi-Oh panicked and ran towards the sound, only to find her in a state of fear. When he was about to chase the perpetrator, Min-Kyung grabbed Whi-Oh's hand and begged him not to leave her. At that moment, the fear in Min-Kyung's eyes was evident. Although Whi-Oh felt sorry for her, his strong sense of justice compelled him to leave her and chase after the perpetrator. He kept running and eventually caught the culprit, which left Min-Kyung, who witnessed it, in shock. Eventually, the culprit was taken to the police station. After that, Min-Kyung followed Whi-Oh from a distance on his way home. Realizing this, Whi-Oh asked Min-Kyung to speak her mind, and he also said that Min-Kyung didn't need to thank him, as it was his duty as a police officer. The atmosphere between them softened a bit, allowing Min-Kyung to finally explain her condition, stating that she easily panicked and often had delusions. That's why Min-Kyung had to go to a mental hospital. Whi-Oh then expressed relief that her mental issues were just minor, as he had thought she might have multiple personalities, be a sociopath, or even a psychopath. Hearing this, Min-Kyung pouted a little, but after some persuasion, she agreed to continue walking. Unexpectedly, Whi-Oh taught Min-Kyung a breathing technique, counting as a method to handle panic attacks. During the breathing exercise, both Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung found themselves staring into each other's eyes, sparking a sense of love between them. The next day, Min-Kyung went to a counseling session. Smiling, Min-Kyung said that she felt safe walking with her dog. Hearing this, the doctor also smiled happily, seeing progress in Min-Kyung's condition with her pet, Howie. However, Min-Kyung clarified that the dog she referred to wasn't Howie, but a big dog that didn't bite women, and that was Whi-Oh. Since that night, Whi-Oh couldn't stop thinking about Min-Kyung. He also went to a counseling session and told his doctor that he wanted to put more effort into his recovery. Whi-Oh remembered a saying that if something cannot be avoided, one should face it or enjoy it. Therefore, Whi-Oh decided to make peace with the situation and just enjoy it. He resolved to allow himself to get angry when he felt angry and to cry when he felt like crying. On his way home, the women from the neighborhood association approached Whi-Oh and thanked him for catching the pervert. They also apologized for mistakenly accusing him of being the pervert. However, Whi-Oh suggested that they should also apologize to Shung-Yeop, as he had been falsely accused as well. When Whi-Oh arrived home, a food delivery courier suddenly showed up with a lot of food. Whi-Oh then refused to accept it because he hadn't ordered any food. However, it turned out to be an order from Min-Kyung that was intentionally delivered to the wrong address. Apparently, Min-Kyung had actually sent the order to Whi-Oh's address on purpose so they could eat together. While they were eating together, Min-Kyung gently asked Whi-Oh to teach her how to fight, as she wanted to learn self-defense so she could protect herself. Enthusiastically, Whi-Oh taught Min-Kyung the most effective self-defense technique in dangerous situations, by clenching your fist and running as fast as you can. Hearing this, Min-Kyung got annoyed because even a child knew that. Whi-Oh then suggested that Min-Kyung should kick a man's vital area, as it is the most effective way to overpower a man. After that, Min-Kyung insisted on practicing the kick and asked Whi-Oh to be her practice dummy. Initially, Whi-Oh was hesitant, but after a long debate, he finally agreed. Shortly after, the practice went smoothly at first, but during the final attempt, Min-Kyung actually kicked Whi-Oh in the vital area. Due to Min-Kyung's kick, Whi-Oh had to endure pain for several days. At the same time, Min-Kyung occasionally sent food as an apology. Several days later, one night while walking, Min-Kyung approached Whi-Oh and asked if he was willing to teach her again. Traumatized by the previous incident, Whi-Oh immediately refused the request, which made Min-Kyung upset. However, as they were about to get on the elevator, Min-Kyung suddenly called Whi-Oh darling. Unexpectedly, there was a strange man inside the elevator with them. Understanding the situation, Whi-Oh willingly acted as Min-Kyung's boyfriend, and he also realized that Min-Kyung was scared, as she was clutching his arm tightly. The strange man, who was wearing a helmet, followed Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung all the way to the front of their apartment. When the atmosphere became very tense, the strange man suddenly started cosplaying as a superhero. It turned out that the man was from the neighboring unit, and he dressed up as a superhero to entertain his child. Feeling sorry for Min-Kyung, who was often scared, Whi-Oh finally agreed to teach her self-defense. That day, Min-Kyung received military-style training. With the first technique Whi-Oh taught was to run away. He then trained Min-Kyung to run as fast as possible because it was the most effective defense. After that, Whi-Oh also taught Min-Kyung how to poke someone's eyes and kick a vital area. Additionally, Min-Kyung had to practice push-ups and duck walks to build a strong bone structure. During their break, Min-Kyung and Whi-Oh went to a convenience store, but Soo-hyun was puzzled as to why these two people with mental issues were getting along when they had previously been fighting. After that, Soo-hyun gave chocolate to Whi-Oh as a token of gratitude for catching the pervert. The three of them ate ice cream together, and eventually, Soo-hyun shared that she admired Whi-Oh a lot, and that she actually wanted to become a police officer. Apparently, she was working part-time at the convenience store to save money for the police entrance fee. Soo-hyun also explained that the pervert caught the previous day had requested to settle the matter peacefully with the victims. Hearing this, Min-Kyung was upset and questioned why a peaceful settlement was necessary. Whi-Oh then explained that it was just an option and that only the victims could decide whether or not to settle. On the way home, Whi-Oh invited Min-Kyung to have dinner together. However, less than a minute after the invitation, Whi-Oh had to cancel because he received a call from Young-ki. After that, they went to have dinner together, and during the meal, Whi-Oh mentioned that there were irregularities in the drug dealer case. He was puzzled as to why the Central Police Office always got involved whenever he tried to catch the dealer. When Whi-Oh, Young-ki, and Eugene raided the club to catch the drug dealer, the Central Police coincidentally showed up. And when Whi-Oh went undercover as a beautiful woman, the Central Police accidentally thwarted his attempt. Despite the numerous irregularities, Whi-Oh had no evidence, so he asked Young-ki to inform him if there were any leads on the drug dealer. Meanwhile, Shung-Yeop went to a cosmetic shopping center and was surprised to see that Soo-hyun was also working part-time there. Shung-Yeop was a bit afraid that Soo-hyun might expose him as a woman. Unexpectedly, Soo-hyun acted as if she didn't recognize him. That night, Shung-Yeop walked back to the apartment dressed as a woman and accidentally ran into Whi-Oh. They then walked together, chatting about various things, and their closeness was noticed by Min-Kyung, which led to a misunderstanding. Because Min-Kyung thought that Whi-Oh had canceled their dinner plans because he wanted to go on a date. Noticing the jealousy on Min-Kyung's face, Shung-Yeop started acting affectionately with Whi-Oh, as he believed that jealousy is a magical potion for bringing love together, hoping that his actions would unite Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung quickly. Afterward, Whi-Oh met Min-Kyung in the park and explained that the woman earlier was Shung-Yeop from Unit 706, and they were just friends, not dating. Hearing this explanation, Min-Kyung smiled happily. The next day, a letter arrived at Min-Kyung's house, and it was a letter proposing a peaceful settlement. After a conflict with her ex, Min-Kyung managed to get Shan-Hu imprisoned, and now his family was continuously trying to settle the matter peacefully to get Shan-Hu released. After that, Min-Kyung called the court and asked why the letter had reached her, as the court had promised to keep her address private. However, the court stated that they had never disclosed her address. Hearing this, Min-Kyung panicked because her home address had been leaked, and she called a real estate agent to sell her house after deciding to move and flee. However, the real estate agent said it might take some time because apartment prices were currently plummeting. On the same day, the women from the neighborhood association asked the local residents to gather for a meeting. They discussed the proposal to change the name of their apartment complex to increase its resale value. Min-Kyung, who usually didn't care, suddenly suggested a good name because she needed to do whatever it took to sell her house and move out as soon as possible. Whi-Oh fell silent for a moment after hearing that Min-Kyung wanted to move. After the meeting ended, Whi-Oh asked why Min-Kyung suddenly wanted to move. However, Min-Kyung only said that she had to move to escape, just as he always said, run away before getting caught. Sometime later, in the middle of the night, Min-Kyung's doorbell rang. When she peeked, it turned out to be a prospective buyer for her house. At that moment, the representative from the real estate agency had brought the prospective buyer in the middle of the night, which made Min-Kyung a bit angry, but she still let them in. After touring the house, the prospective buyer left. The next day, Min-Kyung took a pair of shoes that Whi-Oh had thrown away and placed the shoes in front of her house, hoping that people would think she wasn't living alone. This way, they would think twice before trying to harm her. Unfortunately, the neighbors saw Min-Kyung taking Whi-Oh's shoes and reported it to him. Pretending to be angry, Whi-Oh, who actually wanted to talk to Min-Kyung, went to take back the shoes. On the other hand, the police caught a pervert who had just been fooling around in a hotel. Unexpectedly, Young Ki managed to find a lead on the drug dealer's goods. He then informed Whi-Oh about it, prompting Whi-Oh to immediately come and went to the interrogation room. Upon arriving, Whi-Oh asked how the man got the illegal goods. Initially, the pervert gave unclear answers, but after a punch from Whi-Oh, the pervert confessed that he just went to the designated location and a waiter would come to deliver the goods. Upon hearing the word waiter, Whi-Oh immediately remembered the waiter from the bar that night. Apparently, he had lost track of the waiter because of Eugene's stabbing. Whi-Oh then checked the hotel's CCTV and finally got an image of the suspect who was believed to be the drug dealer. Shortly after, as Whi-Oh was about to go somewhere, he happened to see Min-Kyung struggling in front of her house. It turned out that Min-Kyung had just changed her house's security code, but she had forgotten it. Whi-Oh then called a locksmith service and invited Min-Kyung to rest at his house, as she didn't need to worry because Whi-Oh would be away for a while. After Min-Kyung entered Whi-Oh's house and fell asleep. Coincidentally, Whi-Oh's mother came to visit, and she was shocked to see a woman sleeping there, but she decided not to bother her and started cooking. Not long after, Min-Kyung woke up and was surprised to see Whi-Oh's mother. Min-Kyung tried to explain her situation, stating that she had no relationship with Whi-Oh. Although she didn't believe Min-Kyung's words, Whi-Oh's mother pretended not to care and invited her to join for a meal. Shortly after, Whi-Oh came home and was surprised to see Min-Kyung and his mother eating together. Whi-Oh said that he had only lent his house for a short while and asked Min-Kyung to leave immediately. After Min-Kyung left, his mother scolded Whi-Oh for being rude to Min-Kyung and told him about the real estate agents coming to Min-Kyung's house in the middle of the night, imagining how frightening it must be to live alone. Hearing this, Whi-Oh suddenly realized why Min-Kyung had placed his shoes in front of her house. That night, Whi-Oh went to Min-Kyung's house with a box of items. The box contained men's clothes, men's shoes, boxing gloves, and various other items that reflected masculinity. He then arranged the items in Min-Kyung's house, hoping that people would think she was living with a man and hoped that this action would help Min-Kyung feel more secure. After that, Min-Kyung and Whi-Oh drank soju together. During that moment, Whi-Oh asked Min-Kyung not to move away if it was because of him, as he admitted that he had gotten used to having Min-Kyung around. However, Min-Kyung said that Whi-Oh wasn't the reason she was moving. As she got drunk, Min-Kyung began to share her dark story, recounting how painful and distressing it was. Even after everything that happened to her, society slandered her, declaring that she was at fault and calling her a truly dirty woman. Hearing this, Whi-Oh got upset and angry, asking why Min-Kyung stayed silent while everyone slandered her. With sorrow, Min-Kyung said that it was pointless. Apparently, she had tried to defend herself before, but people only believed what they wanted to believe. Whi-Oh then comforted Min-Kyung, saying that people were jealous of her beauty, which is why they continued to slander her. Hearing this, Min-Kyung decided to go wild, saying she would start doing whatever she wanted without caring about people's opinions. After gazing deeply at Whi-Oh, the drunk Min-Kyung invited him to being intimated. Hearing this, Whi-Oh was shocked and upset by Min-Kyung's suggestion. Even though she had decided to act crazy, her invitation wasn't the right thing to do. When Whi-Oh scolded her about it, Min-Kyung just rambled because she was very drunk. When they got back to her house, Min-Kyung invited Whi-Oh to eat ramyeon at her place. Apparently, in South Korea, inviting someone to eat ramyeon is a code for wanting to being intimated. However, this code only applies to normal people, while for two people with mental issues like Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung, eating ramyeon together didn't imply anything. After that, to cheer themselves up, Min-Kyung and Whi-Oh told each other that they were the only sane people in the world and they laughed together. Meanwhile, Shung-yeop, disguised as a woman, went to a bar. Unexpectedly, Soo-hyun was also working part-time there, and she came over and returned Shung-yeop's card, which had fallen. She also admitted that she knew that the person who had come to the cosmetic shop that day was Shung-yeop. Hearing this, Shung-yeop asked why Soo-hyun pretended not to know him, and she replied that it was professional etiquette as a part-time worker. It was better to pretend not to recognize customers for mutual comfort. Shung-yeop then asked if Soo-hyun didn't find him weird or scary, but she said that the only thing that was truly scary was poverty. Shung-yeop then smiled and said that he was very proud of Soo-hyun for working in so many places. The next day, Whi-Oh woke up and was surprised to find himself sleeping at Min-Kyung's house. When he stepped outside, he was caught by Min-Kyung's mother. Still confused, Whi-Oh quickly returned to his own house. Meanwhile, Min-Kyung's mother entered the house and started scolding her. She couldn't understand how Min-Kyung could sleep with a man after everything that had happened to her. Her mother became even more upset when she saw Whi-Oh's belongings there, and she started crying and hitting Min-Kyung. Once she had calmed down, her mother asked Min-Kyung to make peace with Shan-Hu. Hearing this, Min-Kyung was upset and couldn't understand how her mother could say such a thing. She was disappointed that her mother could forgive Shan-Hu, who had hurt her, and accused her mother of accepting a bribe. However, her mother explained that she didn't want to see Min-Kyung remain in misery and just wanted her to forget everything and live peacefully. Her mother then went to Whi-Oh's house and warned him not to mess with her daughter. She even asserted that she would tear apart anyone who dared to hurt Min-Kyung. Whi-Oh realized that Min-Kyung's mother didn't mean to be harsh, and she acted this way only to protect Min-Kyung from getting hurt. After that, Whi-Oh assured her that he was a police officer and would take care of Min-Kyung with all his heart. This way, Min-Kyung's mother didn't need to worry anymore. Unexpectedly, Min-Kyung's mother started crying, feeling that Whi-Oh could be trusted. Besides, it was the first time she had been able to trust someone again after the terrible incident involving Min-Kyung. After that, she entrusted Min-Kyung to Whi-Oh. Sometime later, Min-Kyung and Whi-Oh went for a walk in the evening. During that time, Min-Kyung said that Whi-Oh reminded her of the superhero Hulk, who was angry but a real man. Of all the Avengers characters, Hulk was Min-Kyung's favorite, and it was a hint that she liked Whi-Oh. During their evening training, Whi-Oh suggested a running race with Min-Kyung. He also promised that if she managed to beat him, he would give her a prize. During the race, it was clear that Whi-Oh let Min-Kyung win on purpose. After that, he gave her a whistle necklace as a prize and told her to blow the whistle if she was ever in trouble, promising to come as quickly as possible. Hearing this, Min-Kyung became very happy. The next day, the real estate agents returned to Min-Kyung's house, this time bringing a wealthy woman as a prospective buyer. After the real estate agents left, the woman invited Min-Kyung to talk, revealing that she was Shan-Hoo's mother. Realizing this, Min-Kyung turned pale and they went to a cafe to talk. With a gentle tone, Shan-Hoo's mother asked Min-Kyung to make peace. She also asked Min-Kyung to become her daughter-in-law, as she also had a daughter and didn't want her to face the same fate as Min-Kyung. Moreover, since Min-Kyung and Shan-Hoo had been in a relationship before, there was no harm in them getting married. However, Min-Kyung firmly said that she would never make peace and even wished that the woman's daughter would suffer the same fate as she had. After that, Shan-Hoo's mother asked how much money Min-Kyung wanted. Feeling insulted, Min-Kyung then threatened to extend Shan-Hoo's prison sentence because his mother had dared to insult her. After the meeting, Min-Kyung cried and blew the whistle loudly and brought Whi-Oh to her. Min-Kyung immediately hugged Whi-Oh, letting out her sadness. Afterward, Whi-Oh took Min-Kyung home, and Min-Kyung said she wouldn't run away anymore, as she would stay and face her problems. Min-Kyung then recounted what had happened earlier that day and decided not to move, realizing that no matter how hard she tried to escape, her address would always be found. Additionally, Min-Kyung planned to join the Women's Association. After sharing everything, Whi-Oh was annoyed that Min-Kyung had faced it all alone. However, she said that it was her issue to face, and there was no reason for her to be afraid because she was the victim. Additionally, Min-Kyung had the magic whistle given by Whi-Oh, which made them both laugh together. The next day, news spread that Min-Kyung was a homewrecker, shocking the women in the association. Meanwhile, Min-Kyung was again approached by Shan-Hoo's mother. As the woman was still adamant about making peace with Min-Kyung and was willing to pay any amount of money that she asked for. Firmly, Min-Kyung stated again that she would not make peace. At that moment, Shan-Hoo's mother accidentally saw the women from the association and started acting as if Min-Kyung was the one at fault. Because of this act, the women from the association became convinced that Min-Kyung was a homewrecker and told her to move out of their apartment complex as soon as possible. However, Min-Kyung remained silent and didn't argue back, then just walked away. Shortly after, the women from the association met Whi-Oh and said that Min-Kyung was very wicked. They also told Whi-Oh to stay away from her. Confused by the situation, Whi-Oh was shown the news about Min-Kyung by the women from the association. But he was upset that they were driving her away without knowing the truth. The women from the association claimed that they had overheard the conversation between Min-Kyung and Shan-Hoo's mother, which was enough proof for them that she was guilty. However, Whi-Oh expressed his disappointment in them, saying how could they drive Min-Kyung away when she had wanted to join them. Hearing Whi-Oh's reproach, the women from the association felt guilty. After that, Whi-Oh went to meet Min-Kyung at a cafe. As he was frustrated because Min-Kyung stayed silent instead of fighting back and proclaiming her innocence. She then said that everything was pointless because the bad news about her had already spread on the internet. She also said that she had lost, and no one was on her side. Hearing this, Whi-Oh loudly declared that he was on Min-Kyung's side. However, she asked if Whi-Oh would defend and believe her, no matter what the circumstances. Confidently, Whi-Oh said that he would, and they then shook hands and took a photo together as a symbol of their alliance. That night, Soo-hyun's ex-boyfriend appeared with his new girlfriend at the supermarket. Coincidentally, Sung-yeop was also there and Soo-hyun called him darling, as she wanted to appear happy in front of her ex. After that, Sung-yeop and Soo-hyun went home together and discussed many things. By chance, there was live music on the street, so Soo-hyun started singing. Unexpectedly, Soo-hyun had a very melodious voice that captivated both Sung-yeop and the other listeners. After singing, Sung-yeop asked why Soo-hyun didn't pursue her talent further, and she replied that she was just a part-time worker. No matter what she had, her status remained the same. On their way home, they were stopped by the women from the association, and they were asked for Sung-yeop's help in hacking a website, as he was skilled with computers. Shortly after, when they traced the comments, they discovered that several negative comments about Min-Kyung came from the same IP address, indicating that someone was deliberately slandering her. Soo-hyun then mentioned that she had seen Min-Kyung with Shan-Hoo's mother at a cafe the previous day while she was working. According to her, it was clear that Min-Kyung was the victim. Hearing this, the women from the association felt ashamed for wrongly accusing Min-Kyung and concluded that Shan-Hoo's mother was behind it all. The next day, the women from the association approached Min-Kyung, apologized, and asked her to join the association. Min-Kyung then said that she would join and also decided not to move out of the apartment. Hearing this, The women from the association were relieved that Min-Kyung forgave them and promised to support her. Not long after, the women from the association met with Shan-Hu's mother and told her all the bad things about Shan-Hu, including that his wealth was fake. They then demanded that she remove all the negative comments about Min-Kyung from the internet, or they would ruin her family. Feeling cornered, Shan-Hu's mother complied with their demands. Successful with their mission, the women of the association invited Min-Kyung to have drinks with them, also celebrating her as a new member of the association. After returning home, Min-Kyung blew her whistle while calling Whi-Oh, saying that she really needed him right now. Shortly after, Whi-Oh came to Min-Kyung's house, and it turned out that she wanted Whi-Oh to read her a story so she could fall asleep. Innocently, Whi-Oh started telling a story, but as he watched Min-Kyung's beautiful face as she fell asleep, he moved closer. Unexpectedly, Min-Kyung opened her eyes. They then shared a tender kiss and decided to sleep together. The next morning, Whi-Oh made breakfast for Min-Kyung, and they looked shy, while recalling the events of the previous night. On the other hand, Min-Kyung's mother and Whi-Oh's mother accidentally met at a fortune-teller's house. At that moment, they were seeking the fortune-teller's help to predict their children's futures. They even met at the bus stop, and Whi-Oh's mother shared that she had a son who was insensitive to women. Although he appeared cold, her son had a warm heart. Min-Kyung's mother also shared that she had a strange daughter, one who couldn't be feminine and was shy. She then said her daughter spoke honestly without considering others' feelings. Hearing this, Whi-Oh's mother said that it was better to be honest than to pretend, and they both laughed, hoping their children would find their own matches. As they still didn't know that their children knew each other and were getting close. That night, Min-Kyung joined Whi-Oh and the women from the association on patrol. They again encountered teenagers smoking and a young man who was drunk. With her suspicious nature, Min-Kyung often wrongly accused people, which frustrated and annoyed Whi-Oh. However, he couldn't get angry because Min-Kyung was his beloved. As they passed an abandoned building, Min-Kyung's suspicions resurfaced. She wondered why a light was on in the empty house. She then urged Whi-Oh to go in and check it out. But Whi-Oh refused, citing a fear of the dark. After that, Min-Kyung bravely decided to go in alone. The atmosphere in the house was very tense, and suddenly a masked man blocked her way. Min-Kyung immediately blew her whistle and screamed. Quickly, Whi-Oh rushed inside and discovered that it was actually a wood processing factory, where the workers wore masks to protect themselves from the dust. Knowing this, Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung apologized for trespassing. As they left, a young man with blonde hair became worried, hoping that Whi-Oh didn't recognize him because he was the drug dealer that Whi-Oh had been looking for. On the way home, Min-Kyung remained suspicious and she speculated that the house was a drug warehouse. Knowing that Min-Kyung often had delusions, Whi-Oh didn't take her seriously, and he thought it was unlikely for a wood factory to be a drug warehouse. The next day, Min-Kyung and Whi-Oh went to a cafe together. While Min-Kyung was ordering food, Young-Ki and manager Kim came over to Whi-Oh, assuming he was alone. Seeing this, Min-Kyung sat at a nearby table and manager Kim began discussing the drug dealer they were hunting, mentioning that the Central Police still hadn't found any leads. Whi-Oh then showed them a photo of a waiter he suspected to be the dealer. Seeing the photo, Min-Kyung found the face familiar. While manager Kim said he would report this finding to the central office. However, Whi-Oh got upset and forbade him from doing so, as he didn't trust the central office, as he suspected that the dealer might be colluding with the Central Police. After saying this, Min-Kyung suddenly hit the table and said that it was quite possible. Manager Kim and Young-Ki were surprised by Min-Kyung's behavior, and they finally realized that Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung were together and they were interrupting. Eventually, Min-Kyung sat with them. After that, Young-Ki started praising Whi-Oh enthusiastically in front of Min-Kyung. He even mentioned that Whi-Oh used to have many girlfriends, but Min-Kyung was the prettiest. He also said there was a female pickpocket who kept getting herself arrested just to meet Whi-Oh. This made Min-Kyung a bit jealous, so Whi-Oh signaled Young-Ki to stop telling the story. On the way home, Min-Kyung mentioned that the dealer in the photo looked very similar to the man she had seen in the abandoned house. However, Whi-Oh ignored her again. This made Min-Kyung upset because Whi-Oh didn't believe her, even though she trusted him completely. She then asked what kind of woman Whi-Oh liked, and he said that he liked women who tuck flowers behind their ears and have problematic personalities. Realizing he was describing her, Min-Kyung smiled happily. Sometime later, Whi-Oh finally received a certificate of mental health from the psychiatric hospital and returned to work. When he arrived at the office, Manager Kim warned Whi-Oh not to investigate the drug dealer anymore because he feared that Whi-Oh might lose control and get fired. After that, Young-ki also mentioned that they had to hand over all their investigation data to the central office. This made Whi-Oh frustrated and puzzled, wondering how the central office knew they had the drug dealer's picture. Whi-Oh then became suspicious of Manager Kim, accusing him of conspiring with the central police. But Manager Kim got angry and said he wasn't that deceitful. He even told Whi-Oh to check his computer for his innocence. After that, there were no irregularities with the central police. Nevertheless, Whi-Oh asked Young-ki to gather all the data about cases successfully solved by the central police. After reviewing the files, they realized that the blonde dealer was named Pil-hee, who had actually been arrested 5 years ago. He was arrested on charges of dealing drugs, but somehow, his status was suddenly downgraded to a user. Shortly after, Pil-hee was released. The police team that handled the case suddenly captured all the drug dealers in the central area. Knowing this, Whi-Oh and Young-ki concluded that Pil-hee had been collaborating with the central police team, as he had negotiated his quick release in exchange for providing information on other drug dealers. Thanks to the support of the central police, Pil-hee was always able to evade capture by Whi-Oh's team. However, Whi-Oh declared that there was one thing the central police didn't know: the fact that he would never give up. After that, Whi-Oh was determined to catch the drug dealer. At the same time, their regular food delivery person arrived and happened to see a photo of Pil-hee. On the other hand, Shan-Hu had been released on parole, but Min-Kyung refused to make peace, so the lawyer told Shan-Hu that he needed to write an apology letter and create a petition. Feeling impatient, Shan-Hu said he would handle everything himself. Not long after, Shan-Hu began stalking Min-Kyung at her apartment. When Min-Kyung was about to go for a walk, suddenly Howie got loose and she was panicked when she saw the leash inside the elevator. She then ran around looking for her dog, and to her shock, she found Howie lying helpless. Min-Kyung immediately took Howie to the veterinary clinic, where the doctor said that Howie had been poisoned. Knowing this, Min-Kyung began to panic again, suspecting that someone was trying to harm her. She then ran to Whi-Oh's house to tell him everything. However, she was surprised when a woman opened the door and even called Whi-Oh darling. Unexpectedly, the woman was Whi-Oh's ex-fiancée, and she deliberately called Whi-Oh darling to make Min-Kyung jealous. Apparently, she had come to Whi-Oh's house to collect some belongings she had left behind. After that, Whi-Oh went to Min-Kyung to explain everything. But she was still furious and told Whi-Oh to leave, thinking the woman was Whi-Oh's wife. Min-Kyung felt even more insecure, believing she had once again become a homewrecker. Whi-Oh tried to explain everything, but Min-Kyung didn't care about any facts and told him that he meant nothing to her. When Min-Kyung closed the door, she accidentally injured Whi-Oh's hand, causing her to worry. At that moment, Whi-Oh expressed his frustration with Min-Kyung for not trusting him, even though he only wanted her to be safe. Hearing this, Min-Kyung softened and began talking about her dog. Whi-Oh then remembered Min-Kyung's delusions and hugged her tightly. During the hug, Whi-Oh accidentally said that it was all just her illusion. Hearing this, Min-Kyung became angry, feeling that Whi-Oh didn't believe her and only considered her insane. After that, they had a heated argument. Back at home, Whi-Oh reflected on himself and remembered his promise to Min-Kyung that he would always believe in her. Filled with regret, he hit his head in frustration. The next day, Whi-Oh went to the apartment's CCTV control center to check what had happened to Min-Kyung's dog. He finally realized that Min-Kyung was telling the truth, as he saw someone deliberately poisoning Howie. Whi-Oh then met with Young-ki, who had brought a file on Min-Kyung's case. At that moment, Whi-Oh felt devastated when he saw the bruises on Min-Kyung's face. Additionally, the video of Shan-Hu abusing her was truly horrifying, and it was no wonder that Min-Kyung had been so traumatized. What shocked Whi-Oh even more was that Shan-Hu had been released on parole. This made Whi-Oh even more anxious. On his way home, Whi-Oh overheard someone on the stairs making a phone call, asking for Min-Kyung's house to be broken into. Upon realizing that the person was Shan-Hu, Whi-Oh chased and beat him. When Whi-Oh wanted to report it to the police, Shan-Hu threatened to release a video about Min-Kyung and himself if Whi-Oh called the police. Furious, Whi-Oh hit Shan-Hu even harder. Seeing this, Min-Kyung tried to intervene, but in his uncontrollable rage, Whi-Oh also pushed Min-Kyung that she fell. At that moment, Min-Kyung's trauma, which made her afraid of being beaten, resurfaced and she could only cry in fear, looking at Whi-Oh. Shortly after, at the police station, Shan-Hu filed a complaint against Whi-Oh for assaulting him. Additionally, Whi-Oh had no evidence that Shan-Hu had any malicious intent. Manager Kim then advised Whi-Oh to apologize to Shan-Hu, fearing that Whi-Oh might be dismissed from the police force if the issue persisted. However, he refused to apologize. When Whi-Oh got home, he wanted to check Min-Kyung's injuries. But she brushed off his hand and said she hated him because he was the one causing her the most pain right now. She also accused him of not believing her and thinking she was crazy. Hearing this, Whi-Oh admitted that he was the one who was crazy. With tears in his eyes, he said that he was extremely angry when he saw Min-Kyung suffering. He didn't care about himself as long as she could be safe. However, Min-Kyung told Whi-Oh to stay out of her business, especially since she considered herself a homewrecker. But Whi-Oh confessed his feelings, saying that an angry man like him deeply loved a crazy homewrecker like her. Hearing this, Min-Kyung fell silent and walked away. The next day, the regular food delivery person for Whi-Oh's team delivered an order to the abandoned house. He was shocked when he saw Pil-hee, the man being hunted by Whi-Oh and his team. It turned out that Min-Kyung's suspicion about the abandoned house was correct. After that, the delivery person quickly reported this to Whi-Oh. Swiftly, Whi-Oh arrived and arrested everyone there, leading to a fight. Despite the struggle, Pil-hee could no longer evade capture and was eventually arrested by Whi-Oh and imprisoned. Manager Kim then congratulated Whi-Oh, expressing his pride in his perseverance. Manager Kim also mentioned that Min-Kyung was currently meeting with Shan-Hu after she had agreed to sign a peace agreement with Shan-Hu. She did this to ensure that Shan-Hu would withdraw his complaint against Whi-Oh. Apparently, Min-Kyung didn't want Whi-Oh to lose his job if the issue continued. Knowing this, Whi-Oh ran to meet her, and he was very anxious because Min-Kyung was meeting with Shan-Hu. Unfortunately, Whi-Oh's worst fears were realized, as Shan-Hu had spiked Min-Kyung's drink, causing her to faint, and he had then kidnapped her. Apparent. Why? Shan-Hu still loved Min-Kyung deeply and kidnapped her so they could be together. At the same time, Whi-Oh then instructed Young-ki to track Min-Kyung's location via her phone. After a long search, Whi-Oh finally found Shan-Hu's car. Whi-Oh then tried to stop the car, but Shan-Hu kept driving. Although Whi-Oh managed to stop the car momentarily, when he approached him, Shan-Hu stepped on the gas, forcing Whi-Oh to climb onto the car. Seeing this, Shan-Hu crashed the car into a street pole, causing Whi-Oh to be thrown off, injuring his head. Despite being hurt, Whi-Oh got up to save Min-Kyung. Realizing his car was damaged, Shan-Hu ran away on foot. He flagged down a passing car for a ride, but it turned out to be driven by Young-ki and Manager Kim. Without hesitation, Shan-Hu was handcuffed and taken to jail. Meanwhile, Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung were taken to the hospital. After that, both their mothers arrived there shortly, surprised to find out that their children knew each other. In short, both Whi-Oh and Min-Kyung received intensive care. When she regained consciousness, Min-Kyung went to see Whi-Oh, and they hugged and planned for a beautiful future together. Whi-Oh then gave Min-Kyung a necklace, a beautiful piece with a whistle pendant, hoping that it would make her feel safer. A few days later, Whi-Oh was discharged from the hospital and planned to meet Min-Kyung. But when he got to the apartment, the women from the association informed him that Min-Kyung had just left, as she had decided to move out of the apartment. Realizing Min-Kyung had just left, Whi-Oh ran to catch up with her and blocked the car she was in. Whi-Oh was upset that Min-Kyung left without saying goodbye. Min-Kyung then extended her hand to bid farewell to Whi-Oh and explained that she was afraid something bad would happen to him if he stayed with her. Besides, Min-Kyung had decided not to be in a relationship with anyone anymore, especially with someone who knew about her past. Therefore, Min-Kyung wished Whi-Oh well for the future. However, Whi-Oh began to cry and said that Min-Kyung was a cruel woman for leaving him, who was her boyfriend, just like that. Hearing this, Min-Kyung could only cry and walk away from him. But Whi-Oh kept shouting, saying that he would keep hitting people if she left him. In his emotional state, Whi-Oh stopped a stranger and started beating him up. Seeing this, Min-Kyung immediately ran to stop them, not wanting Whi-Oh to get angry because of her. At that moment, she also admitted that she was angry when she saw Whi-Oh get hurt and promised to stay with him. Hearing this, Whi-Oh felt relieved but did not let go of the stranger. Unexpectedly, Whi-Oh was beating up the person not out of anger, but because the person was an escaped prisoner and a wanted fugitive. Knowing this, Min-Kyung was happy because now Whi-Oh had learned to control his anger. After that, Whi-Oh confessed his love, and they shared a kiss. Nevertheless, in the end, Min-Kyung decided to go somewhere to take a vacation and find peace. As time went by, Whi-Oh continued with his days while waiting for Min-Kyung to return. Meanwhile, Soo-hyun's singing went viral on the internet, and with Shung Yeop's help, they created a YouTube channel. In a short time, their videos went viral and they started earning from it. On the other hand, the central police officers who had collaborated with Pil-hee were being investigated, and Eugene, who had been paralyzed, recovered and returned to work. Whi-Oh felt great relief because of this. Sometime later, Min-Kyung returned with a more positive aura, and Whi-Oh greeted her with a sweet smile. And so, the story ends. Moral lesson from the story: never stay the night at someone's house if you can't remember how you got there, unless you want to be caught by an angry mom with a lot of questions. And if you're in trouble, just blow a whistle. It might not solve your problems, but it will definitely make people look at you funny.